Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 529 of Ink in Your Veins. I am so happy that you're here today as I'm talking to Livia, Sara, and I can't even explain to you the joy that is in this interview. That's all I'm going to say. Stick around. We're going to talk about art as connection and why words will always let us down and why that's okay. And it'll blow your mind. You're going to love this one. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. What's been going on around here? Complaining, whining, groaning, because it is tax season for expats. It is so hard to do the United States taxes. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Last year, because of the way my royalty stuff was changing, New Zealand has some rules around how long you don't claim royalties, which is not a big deal for most people, but it is a big deal for writers. Anyway, last year was the first year I did it this way that I'm doing this year. And so I have to do my New Zealand taxes first. And then because I live here and I pay New Zealand first, which is great. That's what I want to do. And then I do United States second. And if they think I owe them, then I pay them extra money, which I do because United States. I will point out again, for the record, you've heard it a million times, but there are only two countries in the whole entire world who double tax their citizens, who tax them no matter where they live and no matter what they make. There are two countries that do that, United States and Eritrea. And Eritrea is sanctioned by the UN for doing it. Normally, if I were to make money and live in another country, if I were to, uh, you would only pay on the dollars that you make in that country. You'd pay the taxes. And this is made more confusing because of the tax years. New Zealand tax year is April to March. Obviously, US, for those people who are in the US, is a calendar year. And last year when I did it, this new way, without the help of, $10,000 worth of tax preparer expertise, who had done it the first couple of years I lived here, and they did it wrong every time, to the tune of a lot of money lost. Um, it took me, I want to say, 6 weeks and so many tears. So many tears. I cried so much. It was so hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my business, honestly, over everything else. This year, it has only taken me 3 days, 4 days of solid work. And on every single day, I turn it into this company. I am working with a company. It's like H&R Block, but for expats, basically. And every day I realize, or they tell me, you did it wrong in this way. No, you did it wrong in this way. Nope, this is also wrong. This is upside down. What are you thinking? And then I finally thought I turned it in yesterday. And then I woke up at midnight thinking why doesn't that feel right? That doesn't make sense. So I thought my way through it. And then I realized I'd done it wrong in a new spectacular way. So but maybe I'm done as of about an hour ago. Maybe I'm in the clear. Sorry for the long tax rant, but it's hard. It's the hardest thing that I do, and I am good at numbers. I love a spreadsheet. I do like numbers. And this year I left myself a ton of notes on how to do this next year. So I am paving the way forward with the sincere hope that next year will be easier. And I guess I'm saying all of this because it is easy to get romantic about the idea of writing, and we should. Writing is romantic. Writing is a place where we can sit down and pour out our hearts and souls and bring our imaginings to the page in a way that can transform other human beings. That is romantic AF. Love that. And it's also a business. It does require different hats. The nice thing about this business is that you can hire professionals to help you in basically every aspect of your career. Uh, and believe it or not, I have experts. I have a New Zealand expert who did my New Zealand taxes for me because the business side of it, I have a limited basically corporation here in New Zealand, and that's so hard that I just pay a man to do it really well, and he's very well versed in U.S. taxes too. And then I pay this other H&R Block kind of place a lot of money to help me on the other end. And I still have to use this big, beautiful business brain of mine and get frustrated and try to do everything correctly and then not get it right, screw it up, cry a little bit. I didn't cry much this year, and then do it again. And it's just part of the writing life is trying, failing, trying, failing, trying, failing, trying, and oh, I kind of got it. I kind of got it. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit better next time. I'll write an epilogue that I like even more than the epilogue I wrote here. I will come up with an idea that is even more thrilling than the one that I've been working on. We are always moving forward into the next space, the next thing. And the part that only we can do is the writing. We can get help with all of the other stuff, which leads me to very quickly. Let me just talk about AI again. Um, Anne Handry, is that her name? Handy? Anyway, I will find out the who said this, and I'll put it in an email newsletter probably this week or next week to everybody. So you should be on my list if you want more about this. But I spoke recently on this podcast about how good the AI scammers are getting. They're getting wildly better and wildly worse. At the all at the same time. But Anne, in this newsletter that she sent about it, said something really beautiful. She said, if she wasn't going to tell anybody not to use AI to do what you need to do with AI. Use it like a tool, use it like a spotter at the gym. I very much like that. I don't send my spotter at the gym in to do the hard, heavy work of gaining muscles in my body. Nobody can do that. Nobody, this is such a good metaphor. Nobody can do my writing for me in a way that I can learn, in the way that my brain as a muscle can learn how to do better next time. AI will never do that for me. If we use AI to do our writing will not connect. Say it again. If we use our AI to do our writing just doesn't connect. It will not have the results you want it to. There are excellent, I think, and people will argue with me on this, but there are excellent uses for AI. Things like things like I wrote my this is a dumb use, okay, but I'll present it to you. I wrote myself these notes on how to do the tax stuff for next year, and they were just a jumble of a mess and just half sentences and fragments. And I tossed that into Claude and I said, don't change a word, but organize this into bullet points in a way that is readable. And then I went through and, of course, made sure that it didn't change a word. And it didn't, it was just suddenly readable and followable as a set of instructions. It wasn't a set of instructions before, it was stream of consciousness. Oh, God, I think this is working. And I made it a list of instructions using AI, which is not my skill set. I'm not a person who needs to put things into lists all day, and it can do it in 1 second. That's a great use for AI. If you're going to let it write for you, no. If you're going to let it send emails for you about um, trying to scam you, oh gosh, this one, I'm stuttering because I'm pulling this up. One of the ways that scammers now are coming from writers, and if you are published at all and your email address is findable, again, which it should be, you are getting these, but now they're negging. They're sending you these really flattering but horribly negging emails. This one ends, um, do we let the seven miracles of Beatrix Holland linger quietly with 44 polite reviews, or do we give it the kind of reader magic that turns it into miracle number 8? Uh, the headline for this The headline for this email that Olivia Grants, who is not a real person, sent me is, you wrote 24 books, survived a brick-eating dog, but reviews still bite harder. The emoticons in it, the emojis in it are a brick wall, a dog, books, and a laughing, crying face because she's mocking me. I say she's not a real person. She's a conglomerate of scammers who are doing this to everybody who is out there. The brick eating dog is from my bio. My dog used to eat bricks. I didn't survive that dog. She is my dog. And telling me that my reviews still bite, that I only have 24. The book just came out and I have something like 50 now. And she sent this yesterday. So they are, they're turning up the heat. They're turning up the heat with these emails. And I want to say very clearly, I talked about this with KJ Dall'Antonia the other day on her podcast. If you get in your email a solicitation letter to help you market your book, it is not real, period. Marketing companies do not have the time. They've never had the time. They will not reach out to you. If you get somebody reaching out to you to say, I can help you with your book, it is fake. It is a scam. You are being taken. The one that I thought was really clever was one that I got from somebody who said, my name is Greg. I run the, can't remember what city it is in Meetup. It's a Meetup Readers Book Club in somewhere in Brooklyn. We have 2,500 members. We picked your book. Can you zoom in and talk to us? We'd really love to talk about your book. And I was like, okay, scam, right? So then I just Googled Meetup Brooklyn, and the Meetup group came up, and it had the exact number of members that the email said, and it was started by Greg. And it's a real group. You could see that these are real people in there. They had real reviews that had like a 98% rating. People love this freaking book club. And I'm thinking, wow, that is a lot of people who would read my book. That's incredible. So, but it's got to be a scam because people don't reach out to you like this. They just don't. And so I sent old Greg over on Meetup a quick email. I just sent an email to the founder. He said, no, this is happening all the time. What email are they using right now? They're doing it for all the book clubs that are on Meetup right now. Oh my gosh, I just remembered something else I want to share with you. Um, and so then I know it's a scam. So I write back and I'm not even trying to prank them right now because I don't have the time for that. But I was curious as to what they would do next because this is a book club. What are they doing? And so we went back and forth a couple times. I said, yes, sure. And they said, okay, great. Can't wait to have you pick a day. And I said, okay, I picked this day. And they said, okay, so for this package, it'll be $150. This package, it'll be $200. And I wrote back and I said, I said, I think, you've misunderstood. I never do this for less than $4,000, which of course is not true. So we should do it for $4,000. And here's how you pay me. And they wrote back, okay, send the money here. And I said, no, you misunderstand me. Here's how you pay me. And I took a whole string of numbers, letters, and payment details from somebody else who was trying to scam me over here. It was their name, their Swift number, their international banking codes. I put that in and demanded payment. And the reason I am laughing is because I just remembered that I broke one. I broke one. I'm so proud of myself. Let me find it. Sorry, I don't have it up here right now. Please hold. Okay, I found it. Williamsburg. That's where this was set. The email I sent said, "Please pay in next 24 hours to confirm. Here are my USD account details. Account holder, the name of some other scammer, his account number, his routing number, his Swift code. I changed numbers a couple times because I didn't actually want to get in trouble. And after all of this polite back and forth, it was all AI. So flattering. Da da da. This is what the Williamsburg Book Club, Greg, sent back to me. Not Greg, not the book club. They wrote back, are you okay? You, this stupid human being, he goat. Are you okay? You, this stupid human being, he goat. I rolled on the floor. I read it out loud to my wife. I'm like, I broke them. I broke. I'm not trying to break them. I don't have time. I won't do it again. But this was fun. But it is nuanced. It's good. It's so easy to fall for. Very clearly, if it comes into your email inbox, it is not real. If you think it might be real, do the hardest research you've ever done. Reach out to me. I love to research this stuff. I will help you research it. Okay, so that is all we're going to talk about today. Let's get into this amazing interview with Livia. Livia Sara is a neurodiversity advocate and eating disorder survivor who now helps others overcome their own mental barriers through her books, courses, and coaching programs. She is the creator of the blog Live Label Free and the host of the Live Label Free podcast. Livia is a lifelong learner who stays curious about discovering what it means to live a meaningful existence, and she is always looking for ways to turn every mess into a message. And I guarantee this one's going to blow your socks off. Stick around. Here we go. Don't fall for scams. Do fall for everything that Livia says because it's just delightful. And get some of your own writing done, please. All right, here we go. Well, I am so pleased to welcome you to the show. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
Yes, my name is Livia Sara, and my pronouns are she, her, and you can throw in a they there
Excellent.
if needed.
I love it. I love a they when it feels right. Livia, thank you so much for being here. I've been really looking forward to talking to you because you really come at writing from a unique and useful perspective. And I would love it if you just gave us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the world.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored and delighted and excited to be here. And that question that you just asked, I mean, the first thing that's coming up in me is just I feel like I'm bursting at the seams with all these directions I could go in and all these different
Yeah.
things I could say. And I think as for me as a writer, that kind of is why I am a writer. Is growing up, I felt like I was too much for the world. I like
Hmm.
my soul was being basically pressed into this human body costume, and I have always had a very hard time expressing myself because words, as I'm sure you can relate to, words will forever fail.
Hmm.
They never can match, our essence. So that's kind of what came up intuitively for me, and I think when as a writer, that is how I write. I always tell people when I write, I do not use my cognition. I don't use my mind. I don't use my thoughts. Like everything comes from the soul, and I think in that way, for me, the writing really is it is like a born thing. It's a gift kind of thing, and I think for many of us it is. Um, so yeah, what I do is just briefly, I had an eating disorder. I was diagnosed with anorexia at age 11. Struggled with that until age 18. That obviously was very traumatic to me and my family, influenced a, my life in just every
Hmm.
single way possible. And when I was 20, I discovered I'm autistic. Recently discovered I'm also ADHD. So in just again every way possible, my entire life made sense. The way I think makes sense. The way I feel made more sense. And from these discoveries, and all these trauma and triumphs, I like to say, I kind of really discovered what I how to basically turn my mess into my message. So I started a website and I did Instagram, and now I'm not on Instagram too much anymore because social media and everything it's become.
Yeah.
I started a podcast, and I had all these journals, from 2015 onwards that like they're in a storage unit now back in the States because it's actually 2 a.m. here right now. I'm in the Netherlands.
Oh no,
Yeah,
that's terrible. I'm so sorry that you had to
yeah.
stay up so late. Oh,
No,
I
but
apologize.
no, I went to bed and then I set my alarm. So I woke up 20 minutes ago.
You took a
Yeah.
disco nap before and now we're here.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm sorry about that.
Anything, anything for ink in your veins. Um, yeah, so I don't even and okay, and this is what my brain does is it gets so excited and it goes so fast and I'm like, I don't even know what we were talking
We
about.
were yeah,
Um,
I'm just like resonating with you so hard because that is what the inside of my brain is always doing. You were talking about turning the mess into a message, which is
yes.
incredible. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how turning your mess into a message has kind of informed your writing process?
Yes, yeah. So I remember I was talking about the journals and
Yeah, journals, yes. I
my
forgot too.
whole writing my whole writing kind of started with me basically journaling like for myself in a physical notebook. And then, because we all want connection, we don't want to feel alone in this world. I started sharing my story on social media and on my website, and I was just blogging and writing and looking back, like I was so tempted last year. I had kind of an existential crisis of I think I should delete every single thing I've ever posted online because this is just absolute garbage. Because our writing does get better over time, right?
Oh yeah.
Obviously I had some friends say, no, no, that's the process, that's the beauty is seeing the growth. Because
Hmm.
back then it was basically just stream of consciousness, me just spitting out every single thing, way oversharing, which is a common thing with me. And then in 2021, 2022, and I was actually living outside of Oakland, San Francisco at the time. So I thought
My
that was just
town.
another very funny coincidence. I was living in
Yeah.
Alameda. I lived in Alameda for a year.
And I worked
Um,
on Alameda for years. I know every single
wow.
street. I could work 911 there. Know every street, every house, I could give you addresses of the important things. Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah, so so in it was this time in San Francisco, I was doing my coaching and my Instagram and my podcast, and I was like, yeah, like this isn't it. Like there was something missing, but I didn't know what. And it was this sense of like, I'm sure you know the feeling, Rachel, but that feeling of being like hungry, but like so hungry for
Mhm.
like the, I'm so hungry for something, but I don't know what it is. And then I remember having a conversation with one of my coaching clients, and we were talking about writing and art, and she writes a lot of fiction. Um, and I was like, I'm gonna write a book. Like, and it was in that decision that I realized it and I decided it. And in that moment, I knew I was gonna do it because that's how my brain works too. Again, I'm sure you can resonate. It's like
Mhm.
once that switch is flipped, it's like, oh well, now I have to write the book. Like
Mhm.
nothing can stop me.
Yes. Yes.
um,
Yes. Yes.
so I made a whole outline like on all the index cards, uploaded it to my computer, and was like, I'm gonna write 1,000 words a day. And for 3 months, I wrote 1,000 words a day. And in your theme of 90 days to done, I had a first
Yeah.
draft in 90 days.
Yeah.
Um, I self-published because I was like, as Seth Godin says, no one's going to pick you. Um,
And
right?
and he talks a lot about getting our product out, not sitting on our product,
Yes,
whatever that is, getting our message out in whatever way we
yes.
can, so that we can then craft the next message. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And speaking of crafting the next message, the day I published that book, I started writing a new book because that's how I work.
But there's nothing
So
better than that too, because then you're not just like,
exactly.
focused and completely anxious about how this book is doing. You're focused on something more important
Right.
because that has shipped.
Exactly. And I think that this is something that I was talking about with someone else the other day about what is art. Art is not the book, art is not the finished product, art is the experience of the writing, the immersion
Mhm.
in your story. And I think that's why us authors, we can't wait to write the next thing because we're not actually waiting to write the next thing. We're waiting for the next, we can't wait for the next immersion because
Mm.
that's what we were put on this planet to do. Um,
We can't
so
wait
yeah,
for the next
yeah,
immersion. I'm writing that down because that's gorgeous. That's exactly what we want. And bonus points if that immersion includes at some point connecting to others who want to be immersed. Yeah.
yes, yeah. I mean, art is the definition of connection to
Hmm.
yourself,
Hmm.
to others finding you eventually. Like the amount of people basically that reached out to me after I had published Rainbow Girl, my memoir of, it felt like you were inside my head. Like I thought I was the only one feeling this. And
Mm.
that is when I knew like this, I need to fully commit to the writing more than anything else. Which was a huge leap of faith too, because especially as a self-published author, you don't get paid for writing until later down the line.
Hmm.
But now, with I have 5 books, I'm writing two at the moment. I'm like, I need to do this, and I don't, the money, like it's of course, especially in this world. At the end of the day, we all need the money, and I'm also like, they're also just pieces of paper. I don't
Hmm.
care for having a ton of money. I care that I can do my art because I think it's becoming more clear to us, with the horror of the world and the just direction things are going, that in the end, the only thing that matters is really connection and love.
Hmm.
Because as MLK said, hate isn't going to drive out hate, only love can do that. Um,
Mm, gorgeous. And I
yeah,
love how you say that the art is about the connection and first of all to ourselves, because I think that's what I know I have in the past and other people often forget is just so impatient. We want the book to be out there. We want to connect with others. But the
yeah,
art is really in that true connection with ourselves first.
yeah,
That is
right.
incredibly beautiful. I can't wait to ask you this one because I feel like you're going to have a fun answer for me. And if you don't, that's also okay.
Okay.
But what is the most exciting thing that you've ever realized about your writing process?
Yeah, so I was obviously when you sent me your questions, my brain, my soul did the classic thing of, oh, I could go in a million different directions with each of these. But I think, funnily enough, the first thing that comes up for me with the most exciting thing is also how my writing process is, and what I mean by that, the word that came up for me was trust. And what I mean by that is trusting that no matter what I do, like there's always going to be more writing in me. Like my
Yeah.
soul, my writing soul isn't going to dry out. And I think that that helps ease a lot of the anxiety and the dread of that you described in a previous episode. I don't know who it was on, who it was with. But you know, this waking up in the morning, the dread of sitting down at the desk, the
Mm.
dread of can I still do this? You know, what if I can't? And I last year was in a really bad period of burnout. I frequently fall into burnout because that's what the neurodivergent brain tends to do.
Mhm.
Is it makes itself a bit too tired for the body. And it's always in these moments that I am like, I'm never gonna be able to write ever again. And every time, you know, you write something really good, like the precedent has been set, the bar has been set higher,
Yes.
and it's like, well, how can I top this? And every time we don't maybe top it, but like it's because it's incomparable. But you write something else and you write something else and you write something else. And I think over and over showing myself that I could do that has really given me this trust of like I am a writer, that is my identity, and nothing can take that away from me, not
Mm.
even my own writing. That has been a huge revelation.
That is really, really huge. And that's exactly right. We're not trying to top the last work always. Although, of course, you
Yeah.
know, if asked, I would like to say that I do. But when you put it like that, my goal has always been to be prouder of my most recent work than I am of any other work. And me
Yes.
being prouder of my most recent work has nothing to do with its success,
No.
whether it sells or not, whether it sells copies or not. It has nothing to do with that. It's simply a subjective thing that only I can answer. And up until
Right.
now, with the exception of one book, which we won't go into, but that was a long time ago, um, that it has always been true. My most
Yes.
recent is always the thing I'm proudest of.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what a beautiful way to say that. Oh my gosh, I feel like we're very similar in many, many ways. Um,
I have felt like from the moment I started listening to you and Sasha too, I was like, these are my kind of people. What the heck? Yeah.
and that's what we're talking about, that, you know, that relating to others, that connection is incredible. So what part of writing do you struggle with the most?
Words. And what I mean by that,
The words.
yeah, that was like, again, I knew exactly how I was going to answer that question because that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning of like the expression and the bursting at the seams of like my
Yes.
soul feeling like it's in this human body costume that doesn't that can never encompass or match what, like I'm a very hand talker, and that's because I'm trying to be like, feel my soul, feel my
Hmm.
energy, you know, because the words, I'm saying the words, but I'm actually not even cognizant of what I'm actually saying because I'm speaking from the heart. Um, so I think when it comes to writing, you know, this sounds kind of ironic, but writing is actually very painful for me. It's a very, very painful experience for me. And I don't know if you're familiar with Franz Kafka,
Hmm.
but I really resonate with his, you know, the despair he describes. He has this quote in one of his diaries of doubt dances around every word even before it is written. I
Ooh.
resonate with that. Yeah, like to my core. And basically, his whole diaries he had like 90% of his books burned when he died because yeah, because he told his friend like nothing I write here is what I want, is what I'm trying to say, like it's never matching what I'm trying to say. And I think that that is, you know, when as an artist, as a boundless creative that is confined by, you know, physical constraints, I think that's when the mental health stuff can become debilitating
Hmm.
if you let that stand in the way of the connection.
Hmm.
Because like Kafka was a genius, and 90% of his works we now can't connect with, which
Wow.
is such a shame. And I think that's, where the perfectionism again, that Julia Cameron quote I always love so much of perfectionism is not a quest for the best, it's a pursuit of the worst in ourselves, basically trying to convince us we are failures. Like that is what perfectionism is. And this example I always love to give is, if I go to read my manuscript back for the 20th time, what am I doing? I am actively looking for where I have a comma instead of where there should be a period.
Hmm.
See, I can't be trusted. I'm a
Right. I
failure.
really do
That's
suck.
not
I didn't
trying
do
to
it.
be perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I think with the words thing, that's definitely what I struggle with the most. Um, and it kind of also ties back though to the most exciting thing, which is I can trust that how I intuitively choose to formulate this will connect with other people. Yeah, maybe it's always just going to be a snapshot, but maybe that's part of the beauty of art, that everything is always just a snapshot. It's just in Dutch we have um a word. It's momentopname, which means take of the moment. So
Mm,
basically, snapshot. And that's always what I think of. It's like one book that I write. That is a snapshot of what I was feeling at that moment in time. And I mean, I could never write my memoir that I did 3, 4 years ago. I could never write it again, ever,
hmm.
ever in the same way. Um, and again, maybe that's the beauty of art, is that we're always going to have different ways of emotion in different points in time in this lifetime, which is in itself such a what even is the lifetime, right? Yeah, so
And
I'm not
and
even gonna go there. Uh,
what a relief all this is too, because I feel like if I had heard this when I was, trying to write my first book when I was 11 or 12, and I sat down and I failed, and then I thought, oh, I must not be a very good writer. And then that
yeah.
same thing continued up until I was like 33 or 34 of,
Hmm.
oh, writing is hard. That means I am not
Yeah.
a real writer. Whereas if we have this conversation over and over with each other, reminding ourselves, oh no, it's no big deal. Your words will always fail you.
Yes.
You will always let yourself
Yes.
down. You will never be able to catch everything you want to say. And therefore, that proves that you are a writer. So enjoy that
Yeah.
feeling of failing to do it. And I feel like if somebody had told me that and I'd really grokked it, like in my soul, I think it would have changed a lot of things for me earlier on. So the fact that you know this and that you're sharing this is incredibly huge. And as a 53-year-old writer, I need to hear it every day too. Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
Yeah, so I am a person that is always overwhelmed, let's say. And I think, that definitely has to do with being autistic, is that my and ADHD is my inner world is so messy. It cracked me up your recent podcast episode where you called yourself a clutter bug. I am kind of the opposite in a way. I'm very minimalist.
Mhm.
I have barely any clothes. My sisters are the complete opposite. They are, you can't even walk in their room because there's clothes all over the floor. And that has always been the difference between me and them. I started, obsessively cleaning my room when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Someone would make a sit on my bed and make a crinkle in it. I would say, "You are never allowed to come in my room ever again." Um, I've always been very organized, and I think that was why the ADHD also went undiagnosed for so long for me, was like, you're so organized. I was like, yeah, you don't understand though that for me, being so organized, being so minimal, having everything on the outside being just so was a way to prevent everything from the inside building up even more.
Hmm.
Um, so when it comes to writing, I cannot just be typing away in a project, not seeing what else is going on in all the other places. And I've tried things like Scrivener and things, but that is way too overwhelming for me because I mean, Scrivener, there's so much going on in there.
Hmm.
And
Agree.
then, but then with like Word documents or Google Docs, like there is nothing that creates more like doom pressure, then here's an empty page that stretches for infinity. Fill it up now, you know? So I then got this idea of like, I need to be able to see all the chapters. I need to be able to see what's going on so I can move things. how can I do that? Well, I started writing on index cards, but I was like, this is going to take forever. And what if it doesn't fit on the card? And that's going to be even more overwhelming. So I discovered this software. It's called Mila Note.
I've
And I
heard
think
of
it's actually based
this.
in, yeah, I think
M
it's actually based in Australia.
is it
The
MILA?
company, MIMALA. Yes,
And how do you use
MILA.
it?
Yeah, so because I Googled like index cards digital, something like that.
Hmm.
And I went down this rabbit hole and there's all these different like task organizers and stuff, but so many of them have all these like helpful tools that I'm like, no, that's overwhelming. I just want index cards that I can type. That's all I want. So that's how I discovered it. And now, I'm writing my first fiction novel ever, which has been such
Ooh,
a thrill.
congratulations.
Yeah, it's about an autistic alien. And that's
I
all I'll
love it.
say. That wakes up trapped in a human body on Earth, basically. And so I have all my chapters, written like on visual index cards. And it just gives me the sense of when I write the next one, I don't feel like I'm writing into the abyss because it's part
Mm.
of this coherent storyline that I can see. And you can move and you can drag and drop and you can turn the note cards like into documents. Yeah, so I
I'm
mean, I
just going to
definitely
show you. I've been
recommend it.
feeling like I'm writing into the abyss, and I'm holding up like my big notebook with the post-its of the act, like the act one, act two. But I'm
Yes,
but like I didn't take it with me on my trip this last weekend, but if it was in something like Mila Note, I could just be looking at it anytime I want.
right. Yes,
Ooh, okay, thank you for enabling me for maybe
yeah,
another app because I have tried things like Notion for this, and Notion is again
it's,
outrageously bells and whistles. Like you could do
oh,
everything with
yeah.
Notion, and I will never do anything else except mess around in Notion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, because I mean, Notion was one of those where I'm like, this is way too much going on. It's gonna
Hmm.
overwhelm me.
It's
Yeah.
fabulous, but that will be my full-time job now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
is excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will let you know how that goes.
Yes,
Um,
definitely do.
what is the kindest thing that you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Um, it was creating an email autoresponder last year
What did the
because
autoresponder say?
it basically was titled subject line time and energy protection. And I still have it. I still have the autoresponder. And it is, thank you so much for reaching out. Well, I, really appreciate you reaching out to protect my time and energy. I cannot personally respond to all of these messages. Your inquiry is probably addressed below, and then I give some links about coaching, my podcast, all my places, because as I'm sure you can relate to, like we get so many emails, people asking for advice often. That's with me. It's always, I'm a mother with a kid that has an eating disorder. I have an eating dis- Do you have
Hmm.
advice? Do you have advice? And I have in the autoresponder, like, I do not give advice to non-clients. If you want to speak to me, you can schedule a session link.
Wow, that's really intense because I get a lot of queries asking for help. However, they don't have that kind of desperation. If you're reaching out for ED,
Yeah.
for an eating disorder kind of query, that's high intensity. Whereas people for me are like, well, how do I get published? And I'm like, you,
Yeah.
sir, can wait until I respond to you by saying, here are some links. But
Right.
that so putting that up must have really taken so much pressure
Yeah.
off of you. Do you remember
Yeah.
that feeling of when you first set it up and
Yes. Yeah, I was like, and then I would get them in. I was like, oh, I don't have to respond. Like that, and that, all that time, and not even just time, but mental capacity, soul relief of I can now write and not be distracted. And I think especially if you have an ADHD brain that is constantly looking for the distraction, like now I was like, oh, I need to answer my emails as an excuse to not write. Yes. So that has been huge for me.
attacking me?
And another, well, to make it good, or to compensate for the attack on you, another kind thing that I did for myself this year was to attend your Beyond Affirmations training, which
Oh.
is the first time I've ever done something like just, for the writing craft, basically, that I've invested in something aside from, because like Word subscriptions and stuff, that doesn't count.
Right, right.
So yeah.
Oh, I'm so delighted that you were in there, and I love those tools, and that's that's fantastic. And also, right now, this conversation has inspired me. I think I will put back on my autoresponder because I used to have an epic one, and then I got so much crap about it from people like people in my life,
Really?
oh, well, just like, my wife would say something, well, I'd email it to you, but I'm gonna get that you're busy responder. I'm like, you can get used to it that I took it off, but it was really a thing of beauty and it made people feel good. I
Yes.
remember that. Um, but the reason I asked if you remembered what it felt like is that I remember when I first turned that autoresponder on, how relaxed I was, and I
Yeah.
could take Gmail off of my phone. I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for, like, no one, no, it's not an emergency. Maybe it is because I was 911 for 17 years that I'm always thinking that
Yeah.
every single thing has to be triaged and prioritized and responded to as soon as possible, and they do not.
Right.
My
But
my students
the
always come
writing,
first,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
students know how to get a hold of me, and it's usually in Slack. So
and
yeah,
and the and the and that's kind of the irony, is like the writing needs to be prioritized and needs to come first, not
100%.
the emails. And it's funny you mentioned that about your wife, because my mom, she is exactly the same way. She'll be like, Livia, I don't like that autoresponder, like that's kind of rude, people are so desperate, they want your help, and you have an autoresponder. I'm like, I get it, but it's more rude to never write and to never connect with
Yes.
myself or others because I'm answering emails all day.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
to finally get back to them 2 or 3 weeks later when perhaps
Yes.
their crisis is over and they didn't, they've just been waiting for you to respond. This is great. You know what? Another thing is that I did, and I think I had my assistant Ed do this because I couldn't figure out exactly how to do it. I'm usually good at this stuff, but I couldn't. I put an autoresponder on my DMs in Instagram.
I did that too. Yeah.
It's so nice because people then know I'm
Yeah.
not going to respond to you on Instagram. I should put one on
Right.
Facebook. I just don't know how. Yeah. Okay. These are fantastic. Can you tell us about a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Yeah. So I actually like immediately knew the answer to this, because when I was in seventh grade, so I don't even know how long ago that is at this point, we had to write a story. Well, it wasn't supposed to be a story, it was just supposed to be like a report about the life cycle of an apple. And I remember, the teacher was like, be creative. And most people just wrote like, okay, like there's the seed and it sprouts, just like very basic. But I turned it into this like full-fledged 50-page fiction novel about this apple that was like, there was character building and there was world building, and I remember my teacher being like, this is the most elaborate, intense, creative way someone has ever interpreted this assignment in like my 20 years of teaching. And I remember, my friends reading it, my parents reading it, and being like, Livia, this should be published. This is fantastic. And I was like, it's not that good. This was just a school assignment. But like it wasn't until a few years later that I was like, I am a writer. Like I have to write. Like I have to turn things into stories, because if you can't turn things into stories, what's the point of any of it, right?
Mm.
So yeah, that is when I knew I had ink in my veins.
That is gorgeous. And the fun in your voice as you describe that. Do you still have access to that? Do you have that somewhere saved?
Oh no, 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 I
No, you
have
don't
no. I
have.
think
Oh,
I think
I
I
wish you
was so
did.
like, I thought it was so bad that I like deleted it pretty quickly,
Oh,
because that's what us writer. I mean, the
yeah.
amount of stuff that I deleted because I thought it was so bad.
Yeah.
And you have to get to a point where you realize like everything is going to be so bad, 10 years down the line, because we
And
grow
then
and we evolve as humans.
and then you can realize that it's charming. Like I recently, not recently, maybe a couple of years ago, I read back in my old blogs and I started blogging in
Mhm.
2002. So that was 23 years ago. And the stuff I wrote back then was
Yeah,
inane and anyone can look at it at my website. It's inane.
yeah.
But I was also charmed by my
Yeah.
naivete and my eagerness just to have my words in the world, you know? And so it can be just charming.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Right. And
awesome.
if you wouldn't have started with that, you wouldn't be Rachel Herron,
L-
who has, yeah. So,
Literally. That was
because,
the
yeah,
first
because
brave
that's the
step that we
whole,
take. Mm.
right, right. It's, you have to, again, Seth Godin, I heard this about, like, you have to accept that you're going to be incompetent at the beginning. Because if you can't accept that, you won't ever be competent. That's the
You can't
definition of learning,
you cannot wait until you are a competent writer to write. That was another thing
right?
that I realized at one point that changed everything for me. Oh, I was waiting, studying and not writing. I just had to be incompetent for a long time. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and I always use the metaphor joke of like, imagine a kid, learning how to read. Imagine if the kid said, I will not learn how to read until I know how to read. That is basically what we're saying is I won't write until I have proof that I'm a amazing writer. I'm gonna publish my book and
Yes.
whatever. Like, no, it's gonna be messy. It's gonna be pretty awful in the
Yeah.
beginning, but that's even why, the best writers write you shitty first draft.
Yeah.
Allow it to be so bad,
And
because that is how it starts.
I don't know why we think that we should be the ones to skip that step. I think Ann Patchett is the one who talks about, cellists. There's no cellist who picks up a cello and decides, I'm going to learn today and then present, a concert in, 90 days or so.
Yeah.
I'll do a huge Rachmaninoff concert. They don't do that. Everyone expects you to learn. But in writing, we're like, well, we're using words. I speak all day. I should be able to write. No, 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 no. It's
No.
harder. Give yourself the grace. All right. What is the best book that you have read recently and why did you love it?
Yeah, so I think that it would be Kafka's diaries because he has a
Mm.
lot of
I
diaries. So
love
I've just
reading
kind of been,
diaries, and I haven't read
yes.
his.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I read like you, I read on my Kindle. I mostly listen to audiobooks to
Uh-huh.
be fair. And just because, I have a really hard time sitting still. I'm always getting
Yep.
up, I'm always doing things, I'm always getting
And that's
distracted.
reading. It's reading.
Yep.
Yep.
So the audiobooks help me. But with his diaries, they're obviously not an audiobook format. So I'm reading those on my Kindle because I can highlight and go back and do
Mhm.
like the Command F function because I know that he
Yes.
said something somewhere. And yeah, these diaries, I mean, I don't know if I have ever resonated so like on such a profound existential level with writing ever. Um
Wow.
and yeah,
I'm gonna
because
grab this today.
it's so raw stream of consciousness. And I mean a lot of it is like kind of random, like not random for him obviously, but like he's talking about sitting in the train with his friends.
Hmm.
But then will have this like existential observation that I'm like, what? Like, what did you like? He'll be like, there's a man sitting there in a coat, but if the man like looks lifeless, and all that's truly left in actuality is the coat hanging above like nothingness, like you know. And I totally butchered the quote. That's not the way he said it, but like he'll make these observations and write things about, like, also he had a quote about like the raven forever flaps in my head. I cannot imagine that anyone else's plight resembles mine. Just like, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
he'll have these comments that seemingly come out of left field because first he'll be talking about sitting with his friends in a train and then it'll be this.
that
But
is
like
the
that is exactly how I think.
yeah.
Like I'm having a conversation with someone and then the next moment it's like, what am I doing all of this for anyways? Isn't it all so pointless? Um,
I interrupted
so
myself in a conversation with some friends the other day. I'm like, can you imagine that we're here right now? When I was born, women in America couldn't hold a credit card or a mortgage. And they're like, where did that come from? I'm like, I don't know. How do we end up in this
yes,
timeline? You know? But, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And I actually considered like writing down some quotes that I could share, but I was like, no, because I couldn't, I started looking for them and I was like, no, because now I can't pick, and that's an existential decision that I'm going to spare myself.
I
So I'll
will
just I'll just tell them.
I will read it. I will read it because that's when I really love reading writers' diaries when I'm going to sleep. That's because you're not attached to the plot. I don't need to keep track of
No,
characters. I can just dip into their
right.
brains and be there. Virginia Woolf's diaries are fantastic for
Oh
that.
my
Catherine
gosh.
Mansfield.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Virginia
Switching
Woolf.
topics. Will you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your book or books? Which book do you want to tell us about right now? Do you want to talk about Rainbow Girl?
Um, yeah, I think that's most, well, not relevant to writing, but out of all mine, I think, yeah, let's talk
I
about
think it
Rainbow
is.
Girl. Um, yeah, so that is my memoir of, what it was like growing up undiagnosed autistic specifically, because I got my ADHD diagnosis after I wrote that
Hmm.
book. Um, so and just how much being autistic influenced my trauma, influenced my, feeling out of place in life, feel influenced what eventually, became an eating disorder. Because for me, it was I felt like that alien, that I'm writing
Hmm.
about in my fiction novel, but I didn't understand why I was so different. We were talking about existentialism, when I was very little, I was asking the big question, what is the point of it all? If we're all gonna die anyways, why are we even here?
Hmm.
Why do anything if it's so painful and hard? And so clearly also seeing like that everything was an illusion, and people were so obsessed with money and wearing expensive clothes, and I was the kid who would, they'd pay $80 for like a t-shirt with a logo on it, and I'd go, you're just paying for the logo that you could just rip off and it wouldn't mean anything. And these kids would be so mad at me like that. They would be like, how can you even say that? Like, this is what makes me the cool kid, right? And but yeah, and that's another quote that Franz Kafka wrote that I'm now coming up in my that's now coming up in my head. And all is imaginary, everything is imaginary, but like the only thing that isn't imaginary is my connection to literature. Like that was like another one of those highlights that I
Mm.
was like, yes, like
Hmm.
everything is made up. And everything still is made up. And actually something I talk about in my most recent book, How to Get Out of Quasi Recovery, is that everything in life is a story. And this was really kind of hard for me to put out because I was so afraid, because I knew I was gonna piss people off. But I said, even the eating disorder is a story. Like you tell yourself you need it to cope, you tell yourself, that's gonna ease your anxiety, but even that, it's a limiting belief, which I know you talk about in the Beyond
Hmm.
Affirmations training. um but going back to Rainbow, I kind of illustrate how the traditional eating disorder treatment system is super 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 traumatizing when it's not neurodiversity affirming, how that affected me. And I think that that is a topic, that I know is honestly mainstream at this point for neurodivergent people. And I know that because of the people I work with. It's kind of insane how every client of mine, it's almost copy and paste the exact same story.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and the
Yeah.
irony is that in eating disorder treatment, we are called the hopeless cases. We are called the outliers. But I'm like, we're not the outliers at all. Like your gold standard evidence-based treatment method is based in like Freudian, like 100, 200 years ago, and it doesn't work for everyone. So anyways, yeah, my point with that book was really to illustrate my lived experience, but more importantly that, no matter what you've been told, no matter if you've been given up on by the system, like there is hope and you can find freedom in your own way. Yeah, that's kind of my memoir in a nutshell.
I am just sitting here being so grateful that you reached out and that we are now connected because as you've probably heard me on the show, I do like to just cherry pick friends, that I meet on the show and then I decide, okay, we're friends now. So I'm picking you. I'm just letting you know. Now we're
Yay.
friends. So keep in touch with me. Speaking of keeping in touch, where can people find you out there online?
My website, livelabelfree.com. So that's LIV labelfree.com. And everything is there. My books, my groups, my coaching. Yeah, it's all there.
Thank you for being here so, so, so
Thank
very
you so
much.
much.